What's going on, guys? It's Bromley from Empire Barbell. Real quick, check out the shirts, check out the forum. Thanks. Today I want to talk about 90-90 breathing. Now this is a very important tool in your toolbox that I know nobody does because it's hard and it's uncomfortable and it's easy to talk yourself out of. Many of you maybe just don't know about it, but this plays into a theme in all of my videos, what I come back to regularly, and that is proper bracing mechanics, specifically breathing and bracing, because while they are related, they are not the same thing. Taking a big belly full of air and squeezing while you push your abs out, that is not the same as good bracing habits. So we're going to go over that right now, and we're going to address how 90-90 breathing helps that. So I discovered 90-90 breathing when I went to a Juggernaut seminar probably 5 or 6 years ago. Chad Smith was filming some seminar at his compound when it was still around with Blaine Sumner and Sam Bird and Brandon Lilly. And he had a couple of guys there that went by Dark Side Strength. It was Ryan Brown and Quinn Hennock, who maybe some of you have heard of. I didn't know who they were. And when I heard that they were like the breathing and movement specialists, I was just like, come on, like, let's get to the main attraction. This isn't what I'm here for. Well, we actually started with that, and I ended up volunteering for some of the drills. And after a long discussion about how nobody knows how to breathe and everybody's mechanics are messed up and their posture's messed up and nobody braces right, my ears started to prick up because I had a lot of back injuries and I knew I had weak abdominals. I also knew I was really tight. They were going to demonstrate through this exercise I volunteered for that when you are appropriately braced and making proper use of your abdominals, that your body actually increases flexibility, that flexibility and mobility get limited in your extremities because you're so unstable in your midsection. It's almost like a defense mechanism. So when you get appropriate bracing and protection around the spine, you're actually able to free up more, you're able to move more. And they actually showed that by doing these 90-90 breathing exercises and working on bracing and engaging your abdominals, that when the knee was kept completely straight, the subjects were able to lift their leg higher in the air than they were beforehand. So that was pretty compelling, specifically because, again, I'm very tight. So what is 90-90 breathing? Well, our crash test dummy here, take this illustration with a grain of salt, all right? This isn't going to get you a passing grade in any anatomy test. This is our crash test dummy. You can kind of see what are supposed to be a vertebral column, ribs, diaphragm, abdominals, and the hips. The idea is the knees and the hips are set at 90 degrees. Your feet are up against the wall. And this does a couple of things. One, it sets your spine. That's the big one. You don't have to worry about posture because the idea is to build good bracing habits around correct posture. Your ability to recruit your musculature in a proper sequence is going to be hindered if you're out of position in the first place. So spine has to be aligned. That's one. Laying on the ground takes care of that. Hips and knees are set at 90 degrees. So this is almost kind of like being at the bottom of a squat position, not entirely, but pretty close. And the idea is to work on, when all of these other things are supported and taken care of, to isolate and work on the role of your abdominals and how they contribute to actual breathing mechanics. So the drill for 90-90 breathing is to lay down and to bring your ribs down into your hips. Now that's not to do a full crunch or a sit-up, but just to feel as if there was a string between your rib and your pelvis to shorten that string. That's what your abdominals do when they contract, to bring your ribs down. So doing that sets the spine in a neutral position, it braces your midsection, and it gets the abdominals to work the way they're designed to work. That's isometrically, to resist movement. Not to move you as in a sit-up or a leg raise, but to actually resist motion by bracing your spine and not allowing it to move. So once that's set, as you see these arrows, the ribs come down into the hips. As you breathe and you maintain tension in the abdominals, the diaphragm drops, and now you are dropping your diaphragm into this restricted area. So the hard part of 90-90 breathing in that position is to maintain tension as you try to breathe into that bracing. And what you'll find is that that redistributes the air, or that redistributes the pressure up into your rib cage. So you actually feel your rib cage forced to expand because as your diaphragm drops, it's restricted. You can't do your lazy belly breathing that everybody does, where they just let their belly push in and out. That's restricted. So you drop your diaphragm, now your rib cage has to expand so your lungs can expand and fill up with air. What you'll find, well, what I found, was that it was extraordinarily difficult and extraordinarily uncomfortable. I actually felt a lot of tightening and cramping up around my neck and my shoulders because the fact was I was not used to expanding my rib cage like that. I was bound, I was limited because I was so used to taking these short, shallow, lazy breaths. As the Dark Side Strength guys mentioned, is what everybody does. They started the seminar by saying nobody knows how the hell to breathe. So starting this drill, and if you see, this is, if you can make this out, it's supposed to be kind of a rib cage, a diaphragm, and these lines, you got the abdominals in the front, the obliques, they shorten so the ribs come down. Not exaggerated, we're not doing an exaggerated round. The idea is to bring the ribs down in the context of a neutral spine. And for those of you who haven't done this yet, try to stand with your knees extended, your knees completely locked, and try to bring your ribs down, feeling your abdominals kind of squeeze to bring your ribs down, and then squeeze your glutes to set your pelvis under. And that's going to be pretty much like, almost like a plank position. That's your true neutral position. Squeeze your glutes, keep your ribs down, squeeze your abs. You probably will feel a ton of tension throughout your hips, throughout your glutes, throughout your hamstrings. It's going to feel like an uncomfortable position, and that's going to illustrate fixes you need to make in your posture, because if you're going to do a lift and you have that hard of a time getting your spine set, executing all these movements afterward is going to be very difficult. So these strings shorten, the ribs come down, now you're neutral. Now as this is braced, that diaphragm drops, you're dropping the diaphragm into these restricted abdominal muscles, and everything gets redistributed up. The rib cage is forced open to accommodate that air. So why do we do this? Why is this drill valuable, aside from just doing something that's hard for the sake of it? One, posture, the 90-90 position. Like I said, it sets your posture so you can isolate something that you're likely very bad at, which everybody is when they start. So you can isolate that and focus on that specifically instead of going the long way around, which is trying to work that breathing while you're standing, while fixing your posture. We want to eliminate variables. So the better you get at this and the longer you can handle this type of breathing, the more endurance you're going to have in your abdominals. So your endurance is going to increase, but also your receptivity is going to increase. You're going to be more aware of your abdominals. You're going to be able to recruit them longer. Many of you, when you do this the first time, you're going to find that you get through 1 or 2 breaths, your face is turning red, you're sweating, you're going to find that you're cramping in different areas, maybe even your abs are on fire. Worse yet, maybe your abs just go dead. That's what I found. I got through 2 breaths and I actually had to reset because they would just relax. That should be very eye-opening, especially for you people that think you're strong. If you're trying to get under hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight and your abdominals can't even maintain their proper position for more than a few seconds without just relaxing, that should really open your eyes as to how imbalanced you're going to be, how other structures are going to, engage in this dysfunction, and they're going to get overworked by trying to take up the slack. I mean, we're talking about bracing the very thing that supports your spine. Your vertebral column, the thing that actually houses the main conduit for your central nervous system. Pretty damn important stuff here. You want to be able to keep that fixed, all right? Not just for better performance, and it will improve your performance, but to stay safe. Because I've had a ton of back injuries. I know plenty of other people who have had a ton of back injuries. It's one of those things, you shouldn't have to stick your hand in the fire to learn that it's hot. You shouldn't have to injure your back to learn this is the way to do things. It teaches efficient bracing, again, because you're isolating that, and we are building endurance. Endurance has to come before strength. This is something Stu McGill talks a lot about, and I have covered his stuff before. I'm going to cover it more in the future. But you learn how to get in the right position, you learn how to set your posture, then you learn how to recruit the musculature that's being used in the right way, which is bracing, isometric. Then you work on holding that for longer periods of time. Only at that point do you move to harder positions, and then eventually do you load. But loading is the last step. You're not going to be doing weighted planks or things like ab rollouts if you can't master this basic movement. And the 90-90 breathing, it's specific. I mean, that's really what it is. It's specific to how we move, because your gold standard for bracing during a deadlift or a squat is to lock everything down. It is to resist motion. It is to maintain a neutral spine under this load. So you have anti-movements. My favorite way to build your core is through anti-rotation, anti-extension movements that condition you to hold position while something's trying to turn you around or get you out of that position. A deadlift is basically anti-flexion. And if you use it that way, if you train it that way, if you learn how to hold this position and then you eventually get better at maintaining it under a load, you're going to have some strong abdominals. But if you're not squeezing them, if you don't know how to pull them into position and keep them there, you are going to be missing out on that. You're going to be playing into dysfunction. You will have problems down the road. So what do we do when we're in this position? You get in this position, so I'm going to go through step by step. You lay on the ground, your feet are up against the wall. We start with your feet for as much time as lifters spend trying to find different points of tension in the main movers or the big joints, trying to build tension in their hips when they squat, build tension in their shoulders and in their lats when they press. Nobody worries about building tension through the floor with your feet or ankles. So that's important. So they actually talk about taking your hands and like grabbing the wall, getting your pinky toe and your big toe to like cup the wall using your heel to create like a suction. And the idea is that that's gonna help set your tibia over the arch of your foot like correctly. A lot of people have collapsed arches, that's its own problem. It's just a good opportunity to drill that. But once you're grounded into the wall, your knees and hips are set at 90 degrees, your spine is neutral, you're relaxed, you initiate, you bring the ribs down and tense. You don't have to lift your head up, you don't have to actually crunch, just feel tension in your abdominals. They have to actively, this is active bracing. They have to come down, they have to squeeze, they have to stay squeezed. Once you're in that position, your goal is to maintain rigidness through your midsection as you drop your diaphragm and breathe as deeply as you can. You have to imagine that somebody is standing on your stomach. Imagine you have a monster truck just parked right on your stomach. You have to maintain that level of rigidness and force that diaphragm down in, allowing your rib cage to take the brunt of that movement and open up and expand. Once you're in that position, the exhale, this is really important. This really helps build that proprioception, that receptivity in your abs. Once you're in that position and your face is turning red and you're trying to drop your diaphragm, you're tight, then exhale. And as you exhale, ribs come down, the abs tighten up, they contract, they squeeze, and you're using your abdominals to force all of that air out and get into a deep exhale. So we're getting a lot of motion in the rib cage. We're getting a lot of action in the abdominals to do what they're actually designed to do. I'm not kidding. 2 or 3 good 5-second breaths, beet red face, pouring sweat. You're not going to want to do it anymore. So I always recommend making this a habit. You do it as often as possible, but try to do a few before you lift because it'll prime your abdominals to like wake up so you can feel them when you brace for a deadlift or a squat or something. And you want to progress duration. You want to progress endurance. So you start with a few rounds of, let's say, 2 or 3 breaths, whatever you can handle. Reset, make sure your abs stay tight. Like I said, they're going to go dead at first. Then you progress to 3 or 4 breaths. Then you progress to 5. And then ultimately, you're going to be able to do a lot of breaths, and you just have this regular habit of getting your breaths in and then going about your workout. And this sets you up to get a lot more out of those other bracing exercises we'll do. So when you do planks, side planks or front planks, or when you do variations that involve moving weight around you, when you do waiter carries or farmer carries, things where you're offset, where something's trying to pull you out of position, when you do those, after having this foundation, you'll be able to breathe better, you'll be able to engage your abdominals better, which means those are going to be the part of your body that's strengthened from those exercises, and you're not going to be compensating, recruiting a bunch of other areas to pick up that slack. So this is one of my favorite things to do. Ideally, you're on a gym floor, kind of sliding around down here. I can't see if I'm perfectly 90-90, but I'm pretty close. Knees, this is about a normal squat stance for me. Actively grabbing with my heel, my pinky toe, my big toe, I'm cupping the wall, and I'm trying to ground my feet into the wall. Okay, I'm maintaining tension and position here. I have my head back. Now, first thing I do is I tense the abdominals, thinking about bringing the ribs down, locking my ribs into my hips. Even using your fingers to feel the tension to make sure you're tight. And from there, I'm gonna lock down. I'm gonna do a 5-second breath out. I'm gonna do a 5-second breath in, resisting with my abdominals as deep as I can get. And ready. And then again. So you can probably see I'm already starting to shake. This is a work in progress. I've gotten a lot better at it. It is still not easy. It is not easy at all. And this is something that you need to run through over and over, make a daily habit. And as it gets better, you're able to exhale longer, take more breaths. You can be dang sure that your midsection is getting stronger, your posture is getting better, your movement mechanics will be getting better.